Hello and welcome to episode 129 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Drogon1701. With me is Superman supporter Markhawkman.
Greetings, citizens.
And Batman supporter Greendragoon.
Actually, I'm on Team Flash. Grant Gustafson version.
Say TV version or movie version?
Oh, TV version, definitely.
Of course, we haven't really seen the movie version of The Flash yet, so we don't quite know.
It's not Grant Gustafson.
I'm with you on that. I think they should have done more to combine the TV and movie universes here, but that's above our pay grade.
They're not quite as awesome as Disney.
Well, they can't be all as awesome as the Star Trek universe.
Well, we get what we get as far as movies and stuff go. So we actually have Foundry news tonight, which is great. Obviously, the first thing I should mention is that our new co-host Duncan Idaho is off on vacation this week. He's in a cabin somewhere which has Wi-Fi and TV next to the woods. So we wish him well on his vacation, and he will be back next week. And on to our even bigger and better Foundry news. We got some Tribble notes just right before the show, and I am patching at the moment, and Greendragoon is already patched. So, Dragoon, why don't you show us around the new stuff?
So the big news is that we got the new Khitomer map, as seen in the. Actually, got a second item to go with that. Definitely has the mark of Kestrel on it. Not Kestrel. Zero. I know we commented when we originally saw it how awesome the map was and how much we wished to have it. Very pretty map. Obviously set in the future, but I think as far as map goes, it's not distinct. It means that very useful for.
It has console designs that are unique to it, but it's nothing that's like really out there. I mean, they're like floating holographic consoles, but we've seen those used in the present by various factions. Just that these are a different design.
I suppose also by virtue, consoles are not in Elkar's design, which, so choose, you could probably purpose them as a alien design.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the assets are kind of familiar as assets.
Primer points out that you could use custom objects to hide some of the consoles if you wanted to.
True.
There's a lot of them, though.
Depends on how you rebuilt. We also got the doors to go with it, so that these are replaceable assets that are animated. And I will just say that new doors are always welcome.
Oh, yes.
Strange as it sounds, I think the doors may end up getting more than the map itself.
Well, all new things are welcome, so,
I do notice that it uses a lot of the new ESD furniture.
So like the benches and the
benches
landers.
And chairs. Yeah.
Well, one thing that someone mentioned on the forum is that the general aesthetic seems almost like it's blending Federation stuff with Selene stuff.
Yeah, you can see, these like round corridors are a little bit reminiscent of Selene, perhaps.
I was also noticing out the window is it's got a built-in backdrop.
Oh yeah, that planet thing.
Yeah, I imagine it would. show us the window here, which I'm sure you actually already are. I'm just watching on the stream, which is, of course, has a little
I
bit of
shared
a
my
delay.
screen so you can see my.
Yeah. It's doing that tick 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 thing again.
Yeah, well, I'm live streaming a show in HD, so.
Mm.
So here's an interesting thing. Have the planet outside the window. In the. Ooh, I see what it's doing. Changing backdrops.
It's one of those volumized sky files.
Yeah, so it's shifting the sky file at these windows, and then when you run out to like the main hall, black.
That's odd.
That's interesting. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm curious
the
why
backdrop.
they would volumize their sky files here.
Well, what happens if you move your character up to the top seating level?
Yeah. Top seating level doesn't have any stairs, so we have to.
Yeah, I know.
You'd have to set your spawn point up there. Which will certainly be interesting to see it there, because that's obviously not a place we could get to in the original mission.
Yeah, I actually spent like 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get up there when I was playing the mission.
SFC 100 is asking if we got the sky file for Ancient Iconia. I believe that one didn't have a specific sky file to go with it. It had built-in backdrop, which was also volumized. Because it changed between the interior and exterior, and actually they just patched that out, so it doesn't change anymore, right?
All right, so there's a bit of goofiness in the geometry up. Fell through.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if some of the because there were some cutscenes that happened. Maybe it's because of the cutscenes that there was that.
That could very well be.
That volumized sky file.
Not entirely sure how we could use it to our advantage.
So try and change the backdrop and see what that does to the map. Since we're in here, we can test some of these things out for people.
One of my favorite things to just do for testing purposes is to set something to use the Barge of the Dead backdrop, just to see what it looks like. Why the Barge of the Dead? Well, it's one of the backdrops that modifies the map the most drastically.
Oh, I put this station in orbit of Mars. All right, so. Oh, there it is. There's Mars. And then there's a different planet. I guess according to the most recent
you see the actual backdrop out the main windows, but then you go into the side here and you see the built-in backdrop.
Yeah, I am.
Now you could easily cover up those windows, the smaller ones.
Probably worth mentioning to Zero. Okay, there's this volume changing the backdrop. Then see if she can.
I bet that closed Solane door would be perfect for that spot to cover up those round windows.
It is about the right. It's round and it's the same size-ish.
It'd be cool if we could get a.
Yeah, just get the backdrop file. That would be obviously
file.
Best option.
Although, I mean, it kind of makes me wonder if we were to have volumes.
I'm actually kind of wondering if maybe the devs faked it, because they've faked sky files in certain other missions. In that one, the fake sky file looks like it's just a black screen.
I don't think it's a fake sky file per se. See right here where it changes. lighting suddenly changed. Of overlapping there. Yeah, I think it's just it's a vestigial.
It's something that obviously works perfectly well in the game, in the mission. Something that maybe didn't quite translate to the Foundry so much.
Hmm.
So, other questions. Can you build outside of this map at all? Is there any
Very
space?
far.
Oh yeah, this
pretty
this
well
is like
clipped.
Utopia Phoenicia.
What about above and below? See if you can place a floor and put your spawn point on it somewhere above and below.
The ceiling is at 80. Bad. Floor is at -8.
So nothing
Not a
below
lot.
it.
Well, I mean only about. I mean it's enough. Only about 8 feet worth. 8 meters, I guess. And 80 above, which is actually a lot.
So what does it look like if you say, yeah, put a floor up there and set it to, I don't know, 70 outside the map somewhere?
This looks like normal space.
Yeah. So I wonder if you could find a place that triggers that.
Exterior.
Is it like the exterior of Deep Space Nine, where it's non-interactable geometry?
Figures must still be seeing some of that ceiling. Yeah.
Could be.
Did you just fall through the ceiling into the floor?
Hang on. Let me get to the edge of the map, see if. It looks like a faux outside of the station.
It's probably textured on the underside.
So, not be my choice map of.
Yeah. One more little experiment, though.
Okay.
Go back to the editor and move that off to like one of the, say, the right-hand corner.
Down here.
Yeah, down there for starters. I was curious if it triggers that sky file.
Oh, okay.
Because the sky file only triggers if you go to the left or right of that main room. So I'm curious where that line is. And if it will do it if you're outside the map geometry, or if it's strictly in those halls.
It wasn't doing when I was below the halls. Right when I was.
So it may be just in the hallway.
Yeah.
That it triggers that. In fact, that appears to be the case.
Right here in front.
Well, that's useful information.
Yeah.
Not really a map I'd recommend building outside of.
No. Judging by the size, I wasn't really.
Not really going to get you any advantages to doing that.
But that is not
So-
all that we got.
Yes, we got more. Somebody in the chat room a while back a few minutes ago, was having trouble finding these, but we got the Mirror Universe uniforms, which you have already found. Let's see, for females, they are under the uniform bare chest category.
What I
That's-
don't see is the Odyssey.
Yeah, because there was an Odyssey version, right?
Yeah, it was actually sent back. Just got the Sierra, Jupiter, and Antares.
Is the Odyssey one maybe in a different category?
I was just looking, but I didn't see. But, I mean, on the plus side, we've never actually seen the Terrans use the Odyssey variant.
Yeah, true.
So, if you're creating Terrans, you really only need the Jupiter one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sierra.
'Cause didn't we used to have the Terran Odyssey variant in the live
It
Foundry?
appeared very briefly and then disappeared.
Under the lower body, they're under uniform pants tight.
So, short shorts. They're no longer just restricted to the Thomas Moroni NPC. We can have them on all our custom NPCs now.
Let me check something.
Well, one thing that still amuses me is that every now and then the 7 of 9 top will end up selecting itself on one of my KDF NPCs. It's almost like the Foundry now defaults to that whenever you create a female NPC.
I don't see the shorts in males, so Thomas is the only guy.
The only guy who can have the short shorts.
Mm.
Obviously, a
Maybe
practical
just
joke on Zero's part.
Yeah, might be just as well.
Might be just as well. So Pax is saying that he wishes we had the Terran Starbase assets from the Badlands Battle Zone. Now, I might be mistaken, but aren't those the ones they use? Aren't they the Fleet Starbases? That same model.
I'm not sure if they have
It might have the
decals.
Terran Empire decal on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely get pretty close, passably close. Stuff that the typical player isn't going to know.
Well, in any case, we will now be able to get the proper mirror uniforms that are the same ones that the NPC mobs use for our custom characters.
Do we have all the arm decoration things? Because if I remember, they had like the little sword arm pieces and the logo pieces.
Have the armband.
It appears we do.
Yeah, that would be the little arm dagger thing.
Plus, we still have some of the old Terran Empire pieces as well, I imagine. The belt.
Well, I can't imagine them getting rid of those.
No.
There it is, Terran Empire. Okay. Well, yeah, there's also the belts. Because, I mean, they're sort of...
We always had a couple of belts. The sash, the golden sash thing, and then the one with the dagger. We always had those.
I love the one with the dagger. It's just a fun costume accessory.
It is.
About the Terrans is that they're, in addition to having one with, like, the Odyssey belt except with the Terrans, so you've also got the utility belts, which are more or less the Romulan Republic belts, except now they're available on Federation, and I think Klingons. I haven't played much with the Klingon.
So did this edition of uniforms, did that include the mirror Klingon and Romulan? We should find out.
Mirror Klingons are invisible, apparently.
I haven't bought those uniforms. I have no idea what they might fall under, what categories.
Yeah, I haven't done it on the.
What is that thing that says unassigned NPC? Is that the one that invisible torso?
I think that appeared because he converted a human to a Klingon.
Hmm.
And
That
it was
looks weird.
and it was wearing a uniform that Klingons can't have. That's my guess. Or it's some error thing. No, I'm not seeing any.
I don't know enough about how they're organized.
Well, they weren't much more than like sleeveless versions of the ones that we do have, right?
Yeah.
The Vortas uniforms. And sleeveless versions of the Romulan Republic uniforms, I believe.
Makes me wonder if we didn't get the Odyssey variant.
Oh, wait, there's one.
Okay, so we have it in Romulan.
Yeah, Republic Mirror under uniform bare chest.
I
So,
see no bare
can have-
chest.
You can have sleeveless Romulans. We should point out that this stuff is on Tribble at the moment, and will probably not hit holodeck until season 11.5 drops, which, as we found out today, was April. Help me out, 12th.
Yeah.
April 12th, I believe.
Yep.
Yes, Tuesday the 12th. Because that was the other big piece of news that dropped today was the release date for that, which is April the 12th, and they gave us a nifty trailer and a little page that detailing all this stuff.
So 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, season 11.5, which of course is the skill revamp, the Romulan Republic Admiralty campaign, and there was a third thing.
The start of a new featured episode series.
New featured episode series, and a new specialization.
Get
Strategist.
the red alert in there.
Yes, we're going to have Nakul red alerts. Because the featured episode is going to involve the Nakul attacking a peaceful conference of the...
There are no peaceful conferences
Not in Stowe.
in Star Trek. You should know this by now.
And actually, yeah, not in the shows either, because half the time, if there was a peaceful
Not often in the TV show either, because it didn't stay that way.
I'm just remembering the one where the Tribble attacked the Kazon conference that the Voyager crew was organizing.
As Admiral Akbar would say, it's a trap! No, seriously, that entire conference was a trap.
Yeah, that was a trap. I don't think this one's a trap. I think this one is, everybody's there in good faith, but the Nakul attack, but we'll see.
So I was talking to Casponian today on Twitter, and he was getting excited that Okeg apparently was in the screenshot from the
Yes.
conference. So I believe
Yeah, they
this will
showed
be
off a couple of screenshots.
I
His
believe this will
actual
be
Stowe
his
debut.
first game appearance.
Well, other than the Starbase UGC series that we've been doing. Because he's
Apparently,
been
how
it
much
did not
is
see okay because you designed him wrong.
There was no canon design when we designed him, so we made him how we thought he should be made.
And
That's one of the-
Cryptic disagreed, apparently.
And that's one of the dangers of
We made him
fan
pink, they made him
productions.
purple. You know, that's the difference, basically.
I have to ask, are you guys going to go back and uptake Okeg?
Well, at the moment we can't for purity because it's spotlighted, so we can't edit those at the moment. But we could for photonomy.
Seems like a good idea.
Sure was looking quite a few founder missions.
Speaking of photonomy, I had a moment of, I don't know, not necessarily clarity, but an interesting moment when I was watching the latest season of Daredevil, which I consider one of the best shows going on right now. But I did have a criticism of its latest season in that it had two storylines going on that did not interact very well, and almost not at all. And that reminded me of your criticism of photonomy.
Having seen someone else do it, do you my criticism was justified or bogus?
No, I think so. I think it was a good thing to note, and a good thing for authors to know about if you're doing a series, or you're doing even just a single episode that has multiple plot lines, is that it's really to your benefit if you find ways, and really good ways, to tie them together.
Yeah. I mean,
or
one of those things
separate,
that,
focus one mission or one series on one idea and another one on that second idea.
but there's a lot about plot building that just doesn't become apparent until after it's built. So
Sure.
sometimes it's far less obvious will and won't work story.
And
while
I
you're
think
building
the
it.
solution for photonomy would have been to not separate the two plot lines, but tie them together better. Whereas I think for this last season of Daredevil, the better idea would have been to completely separate the two plot lines and do them either, just not concurrently like they did.
Well,
It was almost
you never know.
trying to do too much.
Maybe.
Every now and then writers will do this thing where they trick you into thinking things are not connected to each other.
And I mean,
Yeah, but in this case, they just really weren't. And I don't want to drop any spoilers in case anybody hasn't watched Daredevil yet and is planning to, which I highly recommend it. It's a great show. But no show is perfect.
Well, I mean, like with the Young Justice series, they had several plot lines that were seemingly unconnected until you realize that they're really, just two different aspects of the same thing.
And I think I would have been fine had they, it's a 13 episode series, and had they, instead of running these two plot lines concurrently, done one separately for, say, the first 6 episodes, and the next one separately for the next 7 episodes, I think I would have been fine with that. But instead, they kept each one going essentially through almost the whole thing.
yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's way harder to see how these things are going to work while you're building it because you're looking at the constituent parts and you can't see that whole until it's done.
And also because you know all of the connections and you know what your intent is. That may not translate to the player. They may not get that same clarity of picture of what you're intending.
Yeah, that's quite true. I often find myself making unintentional omissions that to another person, it's a drastic change in the way the story flows.
I have been working a little bit on, a couple episodes ago, we mentioned putting together kind of a resource for new authors, not about the technical aspects of building Foundry missions, but about the more creative writing aspects. And these are some of the things that we want to definitely cover in that.
Yeah,
That'll be an ongoing thing. It'll take a little while to put all that together.
yeah, I mean, and one of those things that sometimes I don't even know if I know the exact answer, because it's almost like trying to debate philosophy. It's
Mhm.
more it
There is
almost
no,
almost is
there's
more
not
about the
always a
debate
good
than it
answer.
is about the definitive answer.
Which, that was an idea that I had when I was I've been outlining this document, and I thought to myself, well, you could go through several, different ways of doing things, and then maybe have like a quote from an author that says, "This is the way I do it." Not necessarily saying this is the only way you can do it, but this is the way that an established author has found to do something. So that way we kind of get the input of the community in how people who have been doing it a long time. This is the advice that they have. I mean, you just found something interesting as you were touring around the new map here. Is that Skyfile also transitions in that main central hallway?
Yeah.
You could see it change as you were going back and forth there.
That is interesting. Yeah. All of a sudden, that ringed planet disappears.
So, going back to this Khitomer map, what do we actually know? Where is New Khitomer? Does it say in that mission?
Somewhere in the
Apparently
Gamma Quadrant.
Yeah, on the lore blog, it's stated as in being in the Gamma Quadrant.
The Gamma Quadrant. Because I'm wondering, when is this place built?
The future.
The future.
That's all we can say, really.
It's not specified. Okay. I'm just thinking, what ways could you use this in the Foundry mission besides obviously going forward in time to it specifically? Could you say, maybe set a mission about the construction of New Khitomer? Maybe it was a joint project with the Dominion or something like that. Because of course the Dominion
if they said
are fluffy
things,
bunnies now under Odo's leadership.
I'm trying to remember if they said when Khitomer Accord signing was supposed to be taking place.
Primar says after the Feds absorb the KDF and the Romulan Republic, so pretty far in the future.
True, there is that. Though that doesn't specifically say when the station was built.
Sure.
Also,
However,
I have to wonder about the level of the Dominion's cooperation, because they seem to be rather friendly at the meeting.
they do.
Or at the very least, non-antagonistic.
Yeah. I remember them specifically for saying something about they hadn't really been that affected by time travel yet, but they were still here supporting the temporal accords anyway.
So I think it's just a sign that they're not really going to be involved in the temporal accord.
But even is that you could use it for a variety of other purposes. I mean, it's just a nice sort of convention area.
Yeah,
Do we have an Earth backdrop?
We think.
Let's find out.
One of the most interesting things about that is that the station you're on there seems to be around a planet that's a moon of a gas giant, or something along those lines. Anyways,
It's definitely a multi. This place you can see at least a couple planets out the window there.
The map was built apparently by an artist who's an overachiever.
Got to adjust your Y values there.
Just a little.
I was just thinking though. I mean, if we were to have like a couple of volumes that loaded it up um, specific backdrops. Right, so it may not be in the drive file. It may just be geometry that's stuck on.
Well, one of the things you could do is, if you were using this map and you wanted to explain away why you see different changes there, you could say that they're screens instead of windows.
Hmm.
You're seeing a display of something out the window or something like that. But I was just thinking, depending on the different backdrops you could use, you could set it as, just some sort of conference hall in orbit of some planet.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, we probably should let that.
Zero know about the volumized sky file issue. I'm sure Primar will help us with that. Primar is one of our go-to people for QA and bug reporting and stuff. Because, of course, as he admits himself, he breaks everything.
Guess we beat him to the punch.
Well,
but,
he's not always the first to break things.
not always.
But although he does break everything.
In any case, we're pretty excited to have this map, though. It's an excellent looking map.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Dragoon, I know you have a mission review. So why don't we go for that next?
I finally got around to playing Conflicts of Interest 1 by SirBoulevard. Overall, the mission is set in just after Autonomy series. I mean, makes quite a few references, and by quite a few, I mean a ton of references to other Foundry missions. Kind of treating it like an ongoing story. This is called into Earth to meet up with Nay about forming a task force to deal with a rising ASCAR threat, which is a reference to another set of his missions, which are a reference to Pete Sutherland's missions. So you get to briefly beam over to the USS Jupiter, a Jupiter hangar bay. Get briefed on that. Afterwards, or kind of go about do your business and end up overhearing a news feed from for a peace conference that's ongoing on Earth between Frassons and Vacations, kind of deformalized ties. So you're watching this, and during the conference, the Haitian leader is shot by a TR-116, which freaks everyone out. Now, as it happens, one of your crew members is in fact, the daughter of this Haitian leader, and so at her behest, you immediately rush over to Earth and beam aboard this dignitaries. So you beam aboard both the injured Haitian leader as well as the um, representative from the Farassan world and President Okeg. So you kind of start to try and figure out what's going on, and or you can before you get too long, you get attacked by Orion fighters, and you force them off without any trouble, but they beam aboard and attempt to steal a necklace. Um, and you're kind of left trying to figure out where things are going. Um, and that is the end of part one. And I think this is meant to be a 3-part arc. I have to double check. But I would say overall, I mean, it's really hard to make any specific determinations about the overall plot. Um, you are actually treated to a flash forward that occurs where you get to see yourself kind of running and gunning through a uh, base, which I believe is meant to be a Pharassan base, um, and attempting to work together with characters that um, would later meet, which I thought was a really cool thing. It's something I'd kind of toyed with myself before in the past, and decided not to do it, but he pulls it off pretty well here. I was only slightly confused at the beginning when it first happened, because I was like, we're warping to Jupiter, and then cuts to this scene, and then you're like, what happened to going to Jupiter? And unfortunately, you pick up pretty quickly that, oh, this is a forward, um, and that you're seeing future events. Um, like I said, I mean, overall, it's kind of hard to tell where the plot is going because he doesn't get too deep into it before the part ends. Map-wise, he's got plenty of custom maps. As I mentioned, you get treated to um, a shuttle bay interior of the USS Jupiter, so it's a very large shuttle bay meant for a Federation carrier. Um, you also get to run around a custom interior for that's on your ship, as well as the aforementioned Pharassan base and the flash forward. I would say his greatest, I think what the thing that he does the best here, I would think, is the dialogue, because he has a lot of reoccurring characters that are from like various Foundry missions, some his own, some others, um, and he actually does a very good job of um, making the characters feel more than just plot devices. It's just something I really talent I really appreciate of his. Um, I would say in a couple cases he slips in. You'll see like non-human characters slip in um, some human and more modern colloquialisms. I know one character makes reference to oh, so and so is going to flip when they find out, which is kind of a human 20th century specific phrase. A couple of typos, but it wasn't too bad overall.
That's something that a lot of authors do, and it's, part of it is because, of course, we're 20th century humans writing this. So, a lot of people write in a manner that they speak, and that is often not how Star Trek was written.
And it was only like in a couple of places that I've saw that it slipped through. And it wasn't like
now. I would say that there would be some times when that would be justified. Say if you had, if you have aliens in Starfleet, very likely they were educated on Earth at Starfleet Academy, so they may pick up human colloquialisms. Or you could always write some human characters that pick up alien ones, when that makes sense.
But I mean, it's something you got to kind of be aware of, because like it's very easy to let them. That's how we're used to.
Oh yeah. I'm sure everyone's done it.
Overall, I would say I thought the plot was engaging. I mean, I definitely enjoyed meeting characters. I mean, I recognize quite a few of them. Either between I played some of some of the missions they were involved in, and in other cases I follow him on Twitter, so I get to hear him talk about it all the time. So, and kind of mean, the missions I hadn't played, I kind of pieced together.
Now does this
What it's going for.
mission include any of the characters that he borrowed from you?
Yes, at least 3 of them.
To say you created a what is it, like a security team or a Mako team for
Yeah.
your Shadow of Midas mission, and then he has asked you if he could use those characters and has used them several times now.
And honestly, I mean, he's taken them farther than I ever figured for them. I mentioned that the Haitian that is the daughter of this Haitian matriarch is actually which is one of the security officers that I created for Midas. But I remember a while back he played the mission and he was going on about the fact that, did you know that white Haitians are a sign of royalty? Like, no, I didn't know that. And so he'd come up with this like elaborate story about um, and he had mentioned all this to me. He'd been running by me, and I mentioned how he had this figured this plot that he might she might be like not so much disgraced, but um, had defied her birthright, so to speak, and gone off to join Starfleet. And they actually see some of this kind of played out in the mission, which is really cool. I mean, because like I said, it's characters I created, but it's going so much further than I ever really bothered to flesh them out. I didn't need to for my mission.
Which certainly can be fun, letting someone have a character and seeing them run with it. I think.
So there is one major criticism I would have of this, and in fact, let me pull it up here. Kind of illustrate here. Okay. So this is his description for the mission, and got the short description here, but then below it you've got this long list of disclaimers. And if I didn't know who was writing this and the reasons for playing this, I probably would not have played this mission, simply because there's this very long description of all of these things that um, he's basically disclaimering. And I think some of them, with a little work, he could get rid of. Okay, so I mean, the first
You
warning.
wonder if a few of these may have been direct responses to complaints he's gotten on other missions.
Yeah. You'll remember earlier this week I had made the comment about wondering if we perhaps live a little too much in fear of 1-stars. Because I
Was it
seen
after you played this mission?
Yeah. Well, it's after I read this and I was thinking to myself, wow, that is a lot of disclaimers.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the first one warns that it's a ton of reading. And in fairness, the mission is actually a very lot of reading. It's not that there's no combat. I mean, there's a couple of cases but I mean, there's maybe like 2 or 3 fights in the whole mission, and it's a 10 map mission. I would say, well, here, let me get to the second one. This is basically a disclaimer warning that follow up to the Iconian War anthology and by he and P. Sutherland, as well as the Starbase UGC series of Autonomy. So what I think kind of happened in this instance is that he does a lot of fan service to various Foundry missions. I mean a lot. There are like a dozen or so characters, like all spread out, and it kind of feels like he needs to like pay homage to each of them. And in the taking the time to do all of that, it makes mission long. Especially the first part. I mean, you're called out to meet up with Tanay's forming this task force to counter the Askar. So not only does he have to spend all of this time setting that up and explaining what's going on with the ASCAR and why they're forming this task force and all this stuff. But kind of throws me for it, and I could be wrong, and he may be intending to tie this in, but it doesn't seem like the plot is going somewhere that's going to involve the ASCAR in any meaningful way. Um, and so it kind of comes out as this filler. He's clearly trying to set up events for future use, but I don't know that this is a good mission to do that, especially since this is very much seems to be heading towards um, be specifically about the relationship between the Grasslands and the Cations, which is a great plot in of itself. I think he's already done a ton of work in really fleshing out that whole relationship, and I think focusing on that alone should be more than enough fertile ground for series. So the ASCAR kind of come off as a unrelated element, which
Well,
of course,
I know he's got some missions that deal more
but
specifically with them.
I'm kind of wondering if maybe the whole ASCAR thing was an excuse for it to happen.
the whole.
I mean,
I'm sorry,
because
back up there for a sec.
I said I think that maybe the whole ASCAR thing was an excuse for plot to happen.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's plot for this specific mission. I think it may be plot for other missions he wants to do.
Well, you remember the way that Cryptic started off the 2800 series?
Yeah, that's true.
With the board conference that
is
is
true.
never ever brought up again.
Yeah, that's very true. I would say that normally, I mean, I'd be okay with that if it was stuff that any player would have passing knowledge with, but it's dealing with the ASCAR and this whole conflict with the ASCAR, which most normal players are not going to have any knowledge of. It comes back to the disclaimers, because I mean, he clearly writes in all of this stuff about, oh, you've got to play all of these missions in order to get what's going on here, and I want to kind of feel like that works against him, because I mean, who actually measures up to all of these
Well,
these disclaimers? I mean, who's played all of this series? And
the question is who is his audience here? You know,
True.
Does he have a bunch of people who regularly play all of his missions? In which case they will have this information, they will know his style, and he probably wouldn't need so many of these particular disclaimers.
Honestly, for me, I would put in like a footnote. If you want to know more about X, Y, or Z, play this other thing. But I wouldn't go so far as to like up front put like warning labels on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Or I might, as an alternative, say if you have not played any of my missions before, please start with this one, and then you don't have to worry about where it falls in the timeline.
yeah, I'm just kind of worried because all right,
You think
so,
it might be a turn off essentially to a new player
well, and now
coming in and seeing all this, and then no, I don't think I want to play this mission.
analogy time. I don't watch X-Men movies anymore, and that may sound like I don't like X-Men movies, and that's not the case. I used to watch X-Men movies. I got up to part 3. Then I heard the Wolverine movie was bad, and so I stopped. And then later I heard about other X-Men movies, which were said to be good. And then, but I didn't go see it because I had no idea what was going on. And it became this whole way to, like, I can't go to see the new X-Men movie because I haven't seen all of these previous X-Men movies. And so it keeps me from going and seeing the X-Men movies regardless of how good it is.
Truthfully, though, that was more, you projecting than the actual reality of it, though, simply because of the fact that they mucked with continuity a whole lot, and they didn't really, I guess you could say, directly follow up the previous stuff. Then again,
I
you
know, I
didn't
mean-
know that, so.
I couldn't tell you. I didn't go see him. I was afraid that I was literally afraid that I would be missing stuff and wouldn't get what was going on, so I didn't do it. And I'm worried that people won't play this mission because they're worried they don't know what's going on, and then
Well, it's something I see a
give a
lot.
good mission an unfair rap.
It's something I see a lot in, I am like addicted to social media and especially like Reddit now. And there's lots of threads on there about people saying, where should I start with Star Trek? Where should I start? And to me, asking where you should start is an obvious question because you should start at the beginning. Why wouldn't you? Even if the beginning, because as we know in Star Trek, sometimes the earliest seasons weren't the greatest,
Or even the most important.
Or even the most important. And the original series is obviously, very much a product of the 60s, and is not going to appeal to everybody. But still, I have always thought that, if you're going to watch a show, start at the beginning. And I think if you're going to play some SirBoulevard missions, start at the beginning. I'm not actually sure where that is in his missions, but he has quite a lot of them, and they are all in a kind of a shared universe. And when you do a shared universe like that, you are gonna want people to start at the beginning.
That's true. I mean, and it's very much he's attempting to world build here, which is usually a pretty good thing. But I think he spends
Sure.
so much time trying to world build stuff that may or may not actually come into play in this particular collection of missions.
Yeah. Now, what he would really benefit from is campaign support,
Would
which would
but does
essentially force him people to play the first mission.
But I mean, he bases his stuff off of so much disparate material that it's not as clear as, oh, this is part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, all that up. And obviously, this isn't how he's structuring it. I mean, kind of like he's trying to structure it as a series, but doesn't have the benefit of linearity. Am I making any sense?
And now the prophets are going to get involved, and it's going to get really weird.
Anyway,
Okay,
like I said, I mean,
that was a terrible joke. So
yeah,
Actually, though, you reminded me of one of the anniversary event quotes, because you know how Q says all sorts of humorous things as you're flying around. Well, one of them pops up if you fly up next to the wormhole on the Deep Space Nine space map. It's one of those things that comes across as odd because most of what Q says is just a lighthearted joke. I mean, there's this one thing where he this joke about the difference between a gull and, but then with the wormhole thing, he kind of sort of hints that if the prophets really wanted to, they could do a whole lot of wrecking of things. So those things are like, yeah. Well, basically what it is he's sending guys some sort of like an agreement with the prophets or whatever. I forget the exact wording. Okay, that was a tangent. Oh, well.
So anyway, I think you probably could have some condensing of these disclaimers, but at the same time, I mean, he is very deep in a shared universe.
Yeah.
Between his missions and T. Sutherland's missions, and some elements from other missions that he's pulling in. So, at the same time, I think maybe some of them aren't needed. And he did confirm, because he's in our chat room at the moment, that some of these are in direct responses to complaints he's gotten.
Yeah, I know.
Because people didn't necessarily know what they were getting into when they started the mission.
Yeah, I mean,
well, one thing that I would like to mention is that there's a reason why most of those disclaimers on things like, say, food are on the back of the package and not on the front.
Because there were lawsuits, specifically.
I was going to say, I thought let me trim down my feedback into something more actionable. I'd say
Go for it.
I'm liking where the story is going. I would think it could use a task to trim things up. I think I mean just tighten up um, the exposition to only what's relevant to the specific arc. I mean, you can have subtle references here and there for larger things going on. And honestly, I mean, I think with some tweaks to the dialogue, and using of optional dialogue, I mean, you could totally make this a mission that still appeals to new players as well as players who have played all of these missions. I think it's almost like looking at it from those two perspectives, like the person who's been following you all along and the person who's never followed you.
It's a tough needle to thread, though. As we know from the various, I think every time a new Star Trek movie comes out, I hear the same line, which is, we're trying to make it for fans and for people who are new to this series. And it's like, those don't have to be mutually exclusive, but it's really hard to make something for both.
Yeah, but I mean, we have the benefit of that we can give the player a little control over how things progress.
Sure, they don't have to read
How
everything.
the conversation progresses. So you can tailor it so that on the one hand, maybe the player, this is the player's first introduction to Ascar, and then on the other, maybe they've done it before, and you give them an option to kind of how they react to that, and kind of based off of that, how you approach the conversation. Obviously,
yes,
it makes
optional
more work for
dialogue.
Sir
It's
Boulevard.
great.
And yeah, I mean, and just in general, I mean, looking at ways to tighten things up, because I mean, you spend a lot of time setting everything up. So I mean, look between okay, what is relevant to what's going on in this particular series? I mean, obviously, conflict of interest is in and of itself a multi-parter arc.
And this is just a part one, so I mean, a lot of it is going to be set up, but
Yeah.
you still have to make sure that you're doing a good story structure within your part one.
One specific thing that I thought of looking at the description there is that it has in these big bold letters, Romulan Republic captains are not supported, Federation players only. It's I guess you could say an unnecessarily antagonistic way of wording it.
So I have gotten 1 stars for people who played it as a Romulan. At some point, I just kind of said, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not going to try and rewrite it for Romulans, and
well, I mean,
Romulans can't figure out that most
definitely-
missions are written for Federation.
I definitely like the idea of mentioning that it's, written from a Federation point of view, but, it's the phrasing makes it seem like it's a bad idea to play it as a Romulan Republic character.
I'll just shorten it and say 4 Federation captains.
Yeah, but I mean, it's pointing out the majority, not the exception. It would actually be an exception if it was written for Romulans, because the vast majority are not. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but apparently some people don't realize that. But yeah, I mean, I think you might be right sometimes about people being afraid of getting 1 stars.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you just got to turn the mission loose, and people are going to play it. Some people are going to misinterpret things. Some people are going to play it who shouldn't play it because it's not to their taste. And you can't always control that.
Yeah, I mean,
the creator of Batman vs Superman, which is coming out, I think, like this week or something. He can't control everybody who's going to go to this movie, and there's going to be some people who are going to go to this movie who shouldn't, because it's not going to be to their taste. But they don't necessarily know that going in, even if they've read every possible thing out there about the movie. They may still not realize that it's not going to be to their taste.
And I mean, that's the thing, is like everyone gets 1 stars. The best missions ever get 1 star.
Ain't that the
I
truth?
think my missions are pretty well reviewed, and I still get 1 stars. And they'll complain about I didn't do it right for Romulans. I got stuck here. The game decided to crash while I was playing your mission. Server maintenance started while I was playing your mission. I mean, it's like you see everything under the sun, and occasionally they've got valid concerns. It's like, oh,
Oh,
your
sure,
mission
yeah.
breaks when I use my cloaking device. Okay, well, that's obviously something that's my fault. I didn't
Mhm.
plan out for cloaking devices, and that clearly opens up a potential for breakage, and then I can take that information. But in other cases, there's going to be ones that are like, look, I feel for you, man, but there's not really much you can do about that. And I just leave
So
it and go.
since you've got your Foundry window open here,
Okay.
check on your own missions. Let's see the breakdown of reviews for your missions.
Okay.
Since you're a
Part 1 is
well played
balanced.
author,
Wanna
you have a fairly ridiculous amount of plays on that mission for just being a being a
someone with less
non-spotlight.
plays.
For being a non-spotlight.
Okay, let's take diplomacy go. Yeah, I managed to get a surprising 373. Last 2 years since we made it.
Well, and we're totally like famous people,
Yeah.
right? So we have
Like,
name
totally.
recognition on that one.
So 2-star, poor story, unbalanced ground fights, not total garbage, but kind of lame mission. Okay, we built it.
Well,
in like
I'm totally with
5
that
hours.
because it's a hours, and yeah.
In fairness, I've actually heard this complaint a lot. Unbalanced ground fights. Apparently people are having a lot of trouble with the Voth. There's another one, not bad, but the ground battle with the Voth was way too hard.
Interesting.
So that's a consistent.
So that might be something for people to, take as a recommendation. If you're building your own missions, watch out for Voth. They might be very hard to fight on ground.
Oh, this person was so nice to lie about their mission and say it was good. Yeah, there's another hate battling Voth. I mean, in this case, yeah, they need to tone down the combat, but just someone who hates Voth obviously isn't going to be a valid response.
And there's a review from Pax Federatica, so we can disregard that one.
At least he gets that it was built in a couple hours. A bit anticlimactic, but entertaining. So, I mean,
I like that one. That was awesome.
actually-
Now finish the Midas trilogy.
okay. I will take your back under advisement. These are actually not all that bad when it comes to reviews. I mean, obviously.
No. I'm not seeing any particularly ridiculous ones there.
Well, I'm looking at my Okampa New Year mission, and honestly, there's a lot of things that are very similar. Like, all of the different people who complained about the mission being too short, and well, Then there's this one guy who puts in one that says story issues. 1, Kazon don't trade; they just deal. 2, by simple biology and mathematics, the Okampa should be extinct by 2409. 3, story ends abruptly.
Well, one of the things to watch out for is if you're looking through your own reviews, if you see something crop up multiple times, it may be something you want to look at, and you might decide that I can't fix that, or I can fix that.
With Okampa New Year, the whole thing with people thinking that the story's too short, that totally makes sense, and something I am planning to change if I ever get around to revamping the mission.
It was kind of a
however,
challenge, right? Because it was a short challenge anyway. And you started late, right?
Yeah, this is the one where I waited until there was like 2 weeks left in the challenge, and then decided to throw a mission together. Well, but
I think that was my feedback, was that it was I thought it was a bit short. I thought you could have gone on quite a bit longer.
Let's see, what was yours again? Because I know you left
The one you did for
Seems
the,
unfinished,
Because
which is too bad,
hold on.
because it is an interesting premise, revisiting Ocampa and learning more about Linnea. Party Room is well done.
Yeah, I liked your party room.
That was...
I remember it. There was dancing.
Mhm.
one. Started off promising, went way longer than it had to. The ending was a complete troll. Finally said screw it and logged off.
Interesting.
But Bazak's comment was he was wondering what the Kazon are up to. Which kind of makes sense, actually, because I just kind of like sort of like stuck them in there and didn't really have a particularly good reason for it.
They sort of dropped out of the story, and it was like I was waiting for them to show up again. I remember that.
Well, see, the story actually has two different Kazon groups. One that are friendly with the Ocampa and one that isn't.
This is your Ocampa New Year mission, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one that you like tried to do in a weekend.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is definitely a challenge in itself. I have made a mission in 48 hours, and I can't say it was the best mission, but it was certainly an interesting exercise.
Okay, it's been a while since I've gone over the reviews for my mission TAS Redux, which I put a giant disclaimer in the beginning that it's not yet completed. Okay, it's not a giant disclaimer, but it's a disclaimer. One person put in a review. It is surprisingly long. It's horrible. This writing needs proofreading to be elevated to the level of waste of time. I want you to enroll in a professional game development program just to be sure the instructors teach you how many mistakes you make developing this level.
Well, you bring up an interesting thing about disclaimers, though.
Actually, always works.
Not everyone is going to read them.
Because there are a lot of people who gave me like 2 or 3 star reviews that mentioned something about how it's incomplete. And what one person complains about how it's easy to get lost in the space station, which, let's face it, the space station is a redress of Impact Nor, and it's full of crates and crap they have to path around, and it's designed to be a maze-like.
So SFC 100 in the chat room says one of his favorite reviews was, and he quotes, "All of my bridge officers sound like they're selling insurance to each other." And what he did was write essentially generic bridge officer dialogue, which is something that we actually advise people to do, because you have no idea who or what people's bridge officers are. So you don't want to do a whole lot of characterization for them, because you have no idea if one's going to be a Vulcan or one's going to be a, 8,000-year-old Klingon who was assimilated by the Borg, or crazy things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one of those topics. If we start digging more into the theory of it, I'd love to dive into.
Absolutely.
It's a really hard balance to walk.
It is. So, Mark, you said you played a couple of missions this week.
Ooh, hold on a sec. I found one that's just really, really, utterly useless. It's a 1-star review that says, "Not much." This is one that was put on my mission, Darkness Between the Stars. It just says "not much." That's it. It's a 1-star review that says "not much."
If anybody out there who is a player of Foundry missions and not necessarily an author, we do appreciate actual feedback.
Yeah,
even
if you don't like
even
mission,
in the short little things or reviews, at least you could tell us something.
I mean, stuff like a bit slow, needs more action, just a lot of running around scanning. Okay, that actually tells me why you disliked the mission and felt the need to give it a 3-star rating. a 1-star that says meh. Okay, that's 3 letters. Oy.
Yeah, I mean,
I've had some that just type gibberish.
and I
Huh.
fully accept that there are going to be people out there that no matter what I make, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, an
Not
FC.
going to get it the
Of
way
course.
It says, "Dear God, I just found a review that says just beep 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 beep." That's all they did was type beep over and over.
Here's one
Hey,
person
you gotta
that
be.
literally wrote,
see?
not much action, just a lot of run here, scan, run there, scan, and then he repeats that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 times, and clearly he typed it out all 11 times and didn't just copy paste text, because there are typographical errors in some of them, but not all of them.
I would say that's a bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
I don't want to turn this into discussion like that. We're going to just start.
Okay, yeah, I
all
suppose
one
we
stars and
focused
stuff.
on that enough.
But I mean, yeah, I think
No,
my point
because
originally.
occasionally we do get good feedback and actionable feedback sometimes. Even you know,
But I mean,
people who
it's
once
one of those things that it's just a fact of life. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's almost like getting called names in school is like happens to pretty much everyone. Like eventually
Yeah,
you grow up
here-
and find that you don't need to.
Here's one where the guy's talking about proofreading. Actually puts 3 sentences in about how much I need to proofread. It doesn't tell me anything about what needed proofreading.
well we know that's a tough one because I've done proofreading on missions for people, and there's definitely it's tough to put that in a review thing.
Yeah.
You'd need to email the author. I mean, and especially if you do find typos and things in a mission, I advise anybody playing to send a in-game mail to the author. That's really one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the downside is if you want to proofread a mission, you almost have to play through it with a different mindset than you can just playing.
Oh, definitely.
You need to sit down, and if it's your mission, have someone else sit down and go through and specifically look for typos.
Yeah. It's definitely always a good
Not
idea
like
to have.
It's not like I go through and play Foundry missions with a WordPad open and waiting for all the different.
I mean, when I'm playing my own missions, I know what it says. I know what it's supposed to say. I know what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah,
and I just slips right over.
when you read the text, you hear it in your mind the way you expect it to be, and you don't necessarily see what it is.
Your own worst.
So anyway, Mark, you played a couple missions this week.
Swords of Diplomacy by @Gromio. On the forum, he uses the handle Zionist0 for whatever reason, but his in-game name is @Gromio. This is a mission that is set in some sort of an alternate universe because, clearly it's not the standard Star Trek Online universe. I mean, it has Romulans and various other races, but in this universe, the race that was the original inhabitants of Bajor, well, they've returned from some sort of self-imposed exile, and, well, that's where things got interesting. It seems that they have laid claim to a star system that nobody else was really using for anything but dilithium mine, and not even a particularly important one, apparently. But the people that are currently living in the star system, namely the Breen, have decided that they want to keep the star system and not let these aliens have it. I'm trying to remember what the name of the aliens is, and it's not working. Yeah, I kind of forgot that part. Anyway, though, The basic gist of it is that you have been summoned to attend a diplomatic meeting involving these aliens trying to smooth over their relationship with their new neighbors. And it works reasonably well until you find out that, someone has sabotaged the meeting and assassinates one of the diplomats. Then it falls to you, because you're the neutral, impartial observer type person, to figure out who did it and why. As part of this process, you end up learning quite a bit about the various sub-factions of this race, and there's quite a lot of them. And, hearing about all the different assorted grievances they have with each other. And honestly, none of these sub-factions actually know enough about their new neighbors to really have a whole lot to say about their new neighbors. But each other, well, you could the guy wrote a small book about the way the different sub-factions of this race see each other. Also, he made a very, very interesting city map by taking a bunch of those space station props and putting them on the ground. Granted, there are one or two that were some strange choices simply because they were the only partially completed. Oh wait, now I remember. There actually was a reason for that. This is a new colony that these aliens had been building. So it wasn't actually a completed city. It was basically you going around looking at what they're working on and haven't finished yet. Anyway, though, eventually you find out that it is true that one of the factions did decide to sabotage the peace thing, and you have to do something about that. I don't actually remember what race it was at the ending, but at the ending there was some race that pops up and you have to kill them. I don't remember exactly who it was. Probably should have taken more thorough notes than I did, but I'll just leave that as a non-spoiler instead of spoiling out the exact specifics of who did it. Okay. Anyways, the good parts of the mission is it actually has a very creative premise. It's one we've seen in Star Trek before, I guess you could say, but it's not one that's been done in depth often. So it's not one of the more overdone ones. I mean, Mysterious Alien of the Week, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. But, the idea of a race that is like the long-lost forefathers of some other race, well, that's different. Yeah, I am kind of wondering why he chose Bajor for this, but I don't know.
So I got a question for you. You mentioned that he wrote a lot of material on this alien race or alien races. Was it presented in an interesting way, or was it just like walls of text one after the other?
Well, he did a good job of breaking it up because, there are several different maps where you have to talk to members of the race, and one of the maps is set up for no purpose other than you going around trying to figure out who set the bomb at the conference. And to that end, you talk to various representatives of each of these groups and hear what they think about the other groups. I mean, each of the
That's certainly
sections
a good excuse.
isn't particularly long, but there's a lot of them.
It's certainly a good excuse, though, to do that kind of exposition.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story reason that people are telling you all this.
Mm-hmm.
I like that approach.
Also, another thing that was interesting is the way he flavored the dialogue. I mean, it's not like reading a history computer. I mean, because the various ones, they really he put some, I guess you'd say, emotion into it when he wrote the text, so that when one of them talks about how they dislike one of the other groups for stealing their children in the night, well, they it doesn't come off in a clinical, dispassionate way. It comes across in a we hate them and we don't want to see them anymore sort of a way.
It's good. It sounds like good ways to do that kind of exposition.
It definitely added something to the mission, being able to get such a good feel for why the different groups had, I guess you could say, issues with trusting each other. Let's see here. I have to say that the city design he made using all those assorted props was very creative, and it looked really, really cool. I don't know how long I spent exploring it, but it was a lot longer than I normally would on a map, just because there were so many different things. Like he had the under construction version of one of the Federation Starbase maps, and I actually spent something like 20 minutes trying to find a way to jump up on top of the tallest antenna on the map. I got up onto the second tallest one. I did not manage to jump up to the tallest one, but I got on the second tallest one. I'm trying to remember if I was using Acacian or not. I'm thinking no. Oh yeah, now I remember. I was playing on as a Romulan. Yeah,
This is why I always recommend having someone like you or Primar test a map. Because you'll jump all over
I don't
it.
think he meant for people to climb up on top of the antennas. Well, the antennas weren't really what you would call an important part of the mission. But, anyway, where was I? The basic premise of the story was very good. It wasn't a boring story. It had a whole lot of intrigue to it, and you were left really, really, truly wondering who actually did it, because, well, let's face it, your attempts to play detective really don't go very far. What you mostly end up doing is, looking around. You try to gather evidence, but it's really more a matter of finding a way to force the perpetrator to reveal themselves than it is a matter of collecting clues and actually figuring out who the perpetrator is. Which, to be honest, it actually kind of works out well the way he wrote it, because the premise doesn't really lend itself as well as you would think to a true mystery, especially in an MMO setting, because in an MMO setting, it's always about killing the bad guy, not about solving the case and then calling the cops or something. It's more of you find the guy and then you shoot the guy, and you definitely shoot the guy. Let's see here. Certain parts of it were a bit rough. I mean, because as clever and generally awesome as his map designs were, certain things he did in them were just kind of wonky. Because in one map, he put the spawn point a little too close to a column that was baked into the map, and that made it so that when you beamed down, one of the members of your away team got stuck in the column. Fortunately, this was not a map where you had combat, so it didn't really make a whole lot of difference, but it was not a good thing. Oh, also, another really fun thing is that the aliens that you're having this little conference with, they actually think you're the one who planted the bomb. At least at first. After a while, they become convinced that it wasn't you, but at first they're like, we don't know who did this, so we're going to investigate all possibilities, especially the person who we've never met before. Which actually made a lot of sense because, you know, it's a tense situation. There's this allegedly neutral party that's called in as a mediator, and they don't really trust you. I mean, you know, some of them come to trust you later in the story, but, you know, that's then, not at the beginning. Definitely something that it's worth playing. It would probably make more sense if I'd played the previous missions, because like Boulevard, he tends to do the whole world building thing, and I didn't actually play the previous mission, so I don't actually understand all of the aspects of the plot. Oh yeah, part of the reason why I played the mission was because he did one of those casting call things on the forum, because he was looking for races that, you know, you would reasonably expect to see in the Alpha Quadrant, and, you know, people that you would have a reason to be interested in this sort of scenario. So he had, you know, like the Fairy Cardassian ambassadors there, along with some that were, you know, created by other Foundry authors, including myself. Actually, he actually used one of the Boslik NPCs that I created. Actually worked out really well the way he put those in.
Cool. I'm glad to see people, you know, doing that and, you know, kind of soliciting creations from other authors and collaborating in that way. That's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe you had a second mission that you wanted to talk about.
I don't actually remember the name of the mission. Yeah, because I played it and then I forgot to write down the name of the mission, and I don't quite remember what it was. It was someone who was in the Foundry Talk channel, asking for people to play his mission so it could get out of the review tab. And I don't remember who.
Well, why don't you try and find that, and we will review that mission next time.
It might have been Lord Erithron that whose mission it was, but I don't remember the name of his mission.
Well, we're getting kind of close to the end of our time limit here. There's just a couple last things to talk about tonight. One of which came up on the forums just today or yesterday, and it was talking about space objectives and specifically the use of reach markers, which is something that we've talked about a little bit before, and is something I usually try, you know, and I do this myself, and I advise people to stay away from reach markers in space. Especially if they are on a different plane, you know, if you have adjusted the Y value, because it can be sometimes hard for the player to actually run over the exact area that they need to trigger that reach marker. Mm-hmm. And we had somebody who's not an author but a player come into the Foundry forums and ask that people not use reach markers, or at least, you know, one of the things that I've done in missions is for space maps, built all of the objectives on one single plane so that the player never has to go up and down. And then, like background objects and that sort of thing, I vary the Y values so it looks a little bit more natural.
Well, that one example I posted on the forum thread was actually a cryptic mission where there was an objective that involved scanning an asteroid. Well, it was actually a dialogue with contact mission, so when you push the V key, nothing happens. I actually ended up getting horribly off course because I pushed the V key, and that led me to a crafting material node. And then after that, I did the whole corkscrew thing because there was no other way to find the actual objective.
Yeah.
See, because unlike a lot of maps where, you know, there's this random object on the map you have to find, this map, the random object was a single asteroid in the middle of an asteroid field. Unlike most of them, where you can see the object from a considerable distance, not this one.
And it was a dialogue with contact instead of a interact object, right?
Yeah. So, like I said, you can't scan for it.
Because unfortunately, interact object is the only one you can scan for.
So I tend to generally follow 2 rules when it comes to reach markers. First, when at all possible, center around a physical object, something that players can see and know to head for.
And something that is in some way distinct from its surroundings, and not just random asteroid number 275.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep. Good point.
Sometimes it's even necessary to like throw in a beacon effects to
Yeah, the beacon's a good
give
thing
them something.
to use.
Don't go overboard with them. I mean, they work in a pinch, but I also just making the reach marker quite large. I've had a few times, even with like beacon effects, where I'm aiming for like this little 5 kilometer reach marker, and you can only see the reach marker when it pings only every few seconds. It can get a little frustrating. So to make it just large, so they can head in the general direction of the pinging, and they'll trigger it without too much aiming.
One thing that I've done, and I demonstrated this on the show a while back, was create a situation where you are following an NPC that's on a patrol. So in that way, you can be at least reasonably sure that the player is going to run over a reach marker, and so you can trigger things to happen that way. Because most players, if they're going to escort something, they're probably going to get up fairly close to it.
Yeah, and I think it's just definitely planning for
planning and testing, and here's a place where, you know, finding someone to beta test your mission is a good thing to do, because then they'll be able to report back to you, says, I couldn't find this objective.
So what I found super helpful is if you can find somebody to record them playing through your.
Yes,
because that is few times people have like actually recorded playing through a mission. That has been super helpful for seeing exactly where they went wrong or how they interacted with ways that I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a good thing to do. So the other thing that's going on right now is obviously our exploration anthology series. We are just wrapping up the voting for the space station crew. We took a look at the mission maps last time, which looked pretty good, and Dragoon is going to have the unenviable task of making those into spreadsheets very soon, and then we'll get the crew done, and then it will come time for the Foundry Challenge, which we're going to develop the language for that, you know, for the initial post and the prompt that will get everybody working on their missions. It's probably going to the launch for season 11.5 is probably going to fall right in the middle of that. I'm still hoping that there's not going to be any Foundry downtime, but obviously if there is, we will extend the mission deadline for the contest part of it to compensate. Because we don't really know if there's going to be any downtime. And the other thing is, We can try. I'm not sure if we've always gotten a particular answer on that. The other thing is, if everybody watched the trailer for season 11.5, there was an interesting teaser at the end with a original series Constitution class starship going to warp and a date.
I was going to go with antique moving target, but sure, that works.
Should be hauled away as garbage, right? And there was a date along with it, 5/5/2016, May 5th.
Which is interesting because it's several weeks after the season release.
It is. And there was no information given, obviously, because it's a teaser. So they didn't mean to give us any more information than that. So I don't know. Let the speculation begin. What do you suppose that's all about?
Well, my first guess is that it's the second part of their new featured episode series with the Temporal War.
Could be.
Because the last few episodes have been a lead up to the Temporal War. So then we have the actual Temporal War itself.
Could be.
It's just another episode. It would not be teasing it so. And the only time they've teased a date like this was for Legacy of Romulus. They first started teasing would be the launch of Legacy of Romulus. So, but at the same time, I would be incredibly shocked if it's a entire expansion, especially with less than a month from the 12.5.
Yeah, expansion doesn't make sense.
Well, I wouldn't think they would release an expansion on that day. I think that might be the day they announce the expansion for later in the year.
Point. Maybe you're right on that.
That's one possibility.
Now that I recall, they did do that, didn't they? Where they had They had the countdown to the announcement of.
Yeah, there was something. Now the other possibility, which is something that Primer just posted, is that it could be something to do with the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, which is this year.
Which would make sense given that it's a Constitution class ship, and that's where it started.
Now, a long time ago on Twitter, well, not a long time ago, but earlier this year on Twitter, I said that, I'm not necessarily one of those people who goes on and on and on about wanting a T6 Constitution class ship. But if they were going to do one, now would be the time. It's 50th anniversary.
I am still of the opinion that never, ever, ever happened.
Yep.
Well, I think...
I don't think Cryptic could make it happen.
I think going back to the beginning of this game, they should have been more strict with the timeline and not had any of these earlier ships, but that ship has long since sailed, so why not do it?
I don't think it would have stopped people from asking.
Well, I mean, there's a reason
from asking for anything else.
Original Talis and the Constitution class are in the game as low-tier ships that are not even close to competitive on the large scale.
Oh, yeah. But I think if I had been making this game way back in, 6 years ago, I would have said, let's only make ships available that make sense, that would be in operation in 2409. But they didn't do that, so we're not following that.
T5 and T6 ships come in. That's for,
I would have done it even for lower tier ships. I would have made, like an updated, cool 2409 version of the Miranda, and, that's the one you get with customization options and what have you. Not the old Miranda. That's what I would have done.
Honestly, I think that the devs of this game are really, really like the whole fan service thing.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. So I'm cool with that.
Big on that.
But since we're doing fan service, one of the things I always say about this game is that it's a Star Trek playground, not a Star Trek simulator. So, given that, And if somehow CBS relented on the TOS Constitution, let's do it. Let's pull that trigger. I'll fly
Honestly,
it.
I mean, I would love to see the what's the refit version of the one Connie?
Sorry, the what?
It's not the Excalibur. The refit version of Tier 1 Connie.
Oh, Exeter.
Exeter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I would
which
love
is
to see a version
yeah,
of that.
that'd be cool.
Obviously, I think the reason they've never done it before is because it's supposed to share parts with the movie Connie, which I don't
Mhm.
think they're allowed to use.
Yeah, possible.
Or at least they're not allowed to make like a mod.
The amusing thing is that it is actually possible to have a T5U version of the Constellation and not the Constitution. But, almost as old, but not quite. Honestly, I think that it's mostly just a prohibition against having Tier 5 versions of ships that were shown in the original series. And by shown in the original series, I mean shown just in the original series, because clearly the Klingon ship.
So what I
Were-
heard, I don't know how
Designs.
is that goes all the way back to TNG. TNG was not allowed to show the original Enterprise, TOS or movie, because they were worried that people would think it was the Enterprise, and this somehow ended up in this long-standing ban on the old Enterprise being shown in the later stuff.
Well, if you think about it, the original Constitution doesn't show up anywhere.
It shows up TNG or later.
Yeah.
You don't even see it in the TOS movies.
Well,
I
you
mean,
don't
you
see
see
the
the motion
Constitution.
picture version.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I know
they,
that.
they built a new ship just for the movies.
Well, I think they would have done that anyways.
And you never see that one anywhere else either. You see the
Yeah.
Excelsior class in later TNG episodes,
Excelsior,
and that's
Miranda, Oberth,
And Voyager.
you never see the Constitution again.
and as I understand it, it's just a long-standing ban on having the old Enterprise in the modern Trek.
Yeah, the hero ships stay within their own sphere because they very consciously did. I remember reading this somewhere that they purposefully did not put any Sovereign class ships in the Dominion War scenes, even though there would have been some in service, obviously, at the time, because they were very consciously saving that for the films.
Yeah.
So SirBoulevard
It's
says
weird,
that
but,
there's some small changes to the character creator on Tribble versus holodeck. There's differences in the makeup. Let's see. Now you got full face lipstick and eyeshadow makeup options. So we got some more options there. I vaguely remember that being talked about, maybe like in the art forum by some of the character art devs. That some
It probably trickled in when if they made the if it's available to everyone from start. It typically filters into the Foundry without having to be manually added.
The guys are also pointing out that there were a few exceptions to the idea that the hero ships didn't cross over, because there was an Intrepid class shown on Deep Space Nine and some Defiance on Voyager. Is this true?
I mean, like I said, I can't tell you for sure that's what the ultimate reason for no TS or TRS or motion picture Connies and at least no high level ones.
It does make sense, though, from a marketing perspective, because you want to have recognizability for things that you market. You don't want it to be like, generic starship number whatever. You want it to be that starship, which is probably the reason why they didn't have all that many Galaxy class ships in Deep Space Nine. I mean, they did show Galaxy class ships, even one scene where one of them gets blown up.
I think it's possible because we're dealing with different shows and different producers, different writers, different guys behind the scenes, and they probably had different philosophies about all of that.
Was it? Didn't they originally plan for the Stargazer to take on us?
That I couldn't tell you.
Well, the Stargazer was Constellation class, yeah.
Yeah, but originally when they were going to make a Constitution.
Yeah. Well, the
Or
Constellation class, if you take a close look at it, it looks like a kit bash of the TMP Constitution. I mean, it has like 2 sets of nacelles, the same saucer, and like an engineering section that's kind of like fused with the saucer.
But yeah, I mean, it was even to the point where, like during like early season one, Picard has a model Constitution ready where they established the constellation in the battle.
Well, who knows? These things go through a lot of iterations before they actually make it to the screen. A lot of times. So, anyway, we've gone off on a different huge tangent here. So, but why don't we go ahead and end the show for this evening? So, Dragoon, if you want to put up our contact info.
Okay. You can reach us by email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We're also on Twitter at Foundry Roundtab. Drogon can be reached at Drogon1701. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman. I can be reached at Green. Definitely get Duncan's name up next week.
Yes, indeed. But for now, we will say goodnight.
Night.
Good night.